You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and today, man, we're going to have another show lineup for y'all. We're going to talk to music artist Louise Cappi. She is a New Orleans-based singer, songwriter, and entertainer. And we're going to learn about her new project that I think is going to be really cool. It's called Hope. It's a new CD coming out pretty soon. But we're going to talk about her life and her music career. And first, I want to say thank you, Louise, for being on the show today.
Oh, well, thank you, too. I appreciate it very much.
So before we talk about your new CD called Hope, let's learn a little bit more about you and New Orleans. That's a nice place. I've been there a couple of times, so I know the food is amazing, the culture, all that is rich. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm originally from New York, and I moved here, I guess, about 20 years ago. I got embedded into the music scene here. Nobody knew me when I first got here, so I just went around and sat in with some musicians, brought my book of chord charts and asked if I could sit in, and I did that for like a year. And then I started booking my own gigs. I put my own band together and started doing my own thing.
What was some of the influences you had as far as, did you have a mentor? Did you have someone that kind of showed you music, or was it something that you just picked up yourself?
Oh, gosh. Well, when I was, my dad was a New York jazz guitarist. He was very well known in New York, and he toured a lot. And so that's how it started for me. When I was little, he would have jam sessions at our house. And he had some very famous jazz artists come and hang out and put a bottle of whiskey on the table and, play around. And then when I got to be high school, late high school, I want to say junior, senior, he took me on some gigs, and once in a while he'd let me come up and sing with the band. And then after high school, I put together, a piano teacher and our choral director at my high school said, when you graduate, we're gonna put a band together. And so we did, and that's how it started for me there. So I want to say professionally, I started singing around 18.
And you mentioned your father, New York jazz guitarist. Were there times where he allowed you to record stuff, or was it more like just being on the scene and behind the scenes with the band and having that kind of exposure? Yeah,
having that kind of exposure first. I think because I was green, I didn't, and God forbid I forgot the words. So, the whole ride home, you yelling at me. But it was, it was really good exposure for me, a good beginning. And, it's a little scary in the beginning there. And these guys were like top musicians, and this wasn't like a garage band, this was playing with great players. So it was a really good experience, but, it was a little scary. He was a little hard on me, but it was good though. I learned a lot.
And your music has been reviewed by many media outlets. When did you start the journey towards New Orleans, and what was it that brought you there?
Well, at the time we were living in Florida. I lived in Florida for a while, and my husband had a job there. He's not in the music industry. He had a different job. And we were talking about New Orleans a lot. And then it was just so weird one day, I think we were talking about New Orleans for about 6 months, and his boss, somebody said to him, we're opening up a branch in New Orleans. Would you like to go there and work? What do they call it? Move, transfer there. And we looked at each other and we said, okay, thanks God. And so, because we knew it would be a great place for me. So we moved there, and that's when I told you I started sitting in and started my music thing. So I feel like the whole direction of my life had brought me to New Orleans. And which is weird too. I mean, it's just a coincidence, although I don't really believe in coincidence. But my name is Louise Ann, my first and middle name. And, we ended up in Louisiana. So I think that was kind of cool.
That is cool.
Right?
And once again, we are talking to Louise Cappi. You can go to her website, louisecappimusic.com. And when it comes to performing in New Orleans, I'm sure you have done a lot of touring before pre-COVID, and hopefully things are opening up a little bit where you are getting out and about, around New Orleans. But what was some of your favorite spots, and did they have some special food? Because everyone knows New Orleans has some amazing food down there. So what was some of the special spots that you enjoyed being able to perform at?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, there's quite a few. Well, I just did a gig at this past Thursday at Bar Marilou, which is in the Maison de la Luce Hotel. Very French, the whole thing. It's a beautiful, very hip, great little bar. And that was a lot of fun. There's some great places. Some of the hotels have great bands. So that's one of the hotels. Another place I've loved working was Snug Harbor, which I would say is the premier jazz club in New Orleans and in the southeast here. But there's just so many. There's a street, I don't know if you were able to visit it when you were here, called Frenchman Street. Bourbon is very touristy. Mm-hmm. And Frenchman was where all of the locals hang out. And although now it's getting kind of touristy as well. But you just walk down the street, there are clubs lining the whole street and great music just rolling out of the clubs into the street. It's fabulous. And then we have brass bands outside playing. I mean, it's just music. I mean, it's in the streets, it's in the gutter, it's everywhere.
Yes, that brings back memory because I went to New Orleans when I was a little younger, and I do remember not just the food, obviously, but the bands outside, the brass, trumpet players, trombone players, and just the whole vibe. And those were some very fun times because it was summer evening, and everyone's just having their dinner, desserts, and stuff. But the bands, the sound of New Orleans, that was so special. And you as an artist, you as a person in that area, what are some of the things you're seeing as far as we all know we have gone through COVID, but what are some of the things you're seeing from the crowd? What are you seeing down there?
Well, honey, it a month ago, I would have told you, things are back. A lot of the clubs, let's see, this is July, right? No, we're in August. It's August. Mm-hmm. June and July, I would have said, yeah, it's back, we're back, and the clubs were opening. And now, I want to say the last 2 weeks, it's gone up again, the level of virus, people catching and getting sick. So our governor and our mayor have brought things back again we have to wear masks all the time in the club. Of course, I didn't have to do it when I'm singing, but my band wore masks, and it's really a drag. It's hard, but people, if they don't want to go back to that, they have to get their shots, and that's what. And Louisiana has been pretty bad about getting their shots, although it's getting better now. But so. The clubs are opening and nobody wants them to have to close again. Mm-hmm. So, and that was pretty weird, the whole thing. But the only thing, I don't want to get ahead of you here, is the only good thing about COVID for me was that I wrote my whole album during COVID, and my new album, Hope. And that was a positive.
And that's a perfect segue, because I was just going to say, music gives people hope, and that's just a play of words for your title of the CD, but in all seriousness, it does. And despite the things that are happening with things in the world and health and whatnot, music allows people to have that nice escape. And when you started, you said you wrote your album during times in the heavy peak of COVID when things were really shut down. What was some of the things that you were trying to come across with your project and hoping that it'll translate for people who hear it?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was like everybody else, couldn't work. And so I was watching the news a lot at that time, and just trying to get my head around, like everybody else, what was happening. And it just broke my heart, not only to see the loss of life, but and here in our city, people I knew who owned clubs. I have a good friend whose club I worked at, and for them to lose their businesses and just struggling, it just broke. It was so hard. And I wanted to speak to that and encourage not only my friends, but the world, if anybody will listen, to keep hope. And that's where hope came from, the words for hope. And I thought to myself, before COVID, I was a chaplain at Toro Hospital here in New Orleans. I have a background in theology, a degree. And one of the things we would say to the patients when we went in to speak to them was one of the protocols to ask them, what gives you hope? That was like one of the questions. And this was before COVID or any of it. And let them speak. So let's say you're in the oncology ward and somebody has cancer, and you want to get them to what's going to help you get through? What do you hope for? And some would say, I want to see my grandchildren, or some would say, I just want to live another year, or, whatever it is. I want to see my husband. So when I went about writing this, I thought about those times at the hospital, and then I just started asking the question, which is first, what is hope? And then I just went about answering it for myself, at least. And that's how that started. The whole song is, and then I wrote another song on the album called Keep That Dream Alive, which was about addressing people losing their businesses and their livelihoods and things they worked their whole life for. And that song sort of, speaks to that as well. And then I have a couple of funny songs because I want to make people laugh too. So I have a couple of silly songs, Happy Place. It's like a real blues, but it's fun. And yeah, so that was my purpose for doing it. And my band, I would call them up and say, put your mask on, I'm coming over, and we're going to work on this song. And then a few weeks later, I'd say, I'm coming over, let's work on another song. And in a year, And it kept us busy because they were going stir crazy.
I find it very interesting that you say you were a chaplain, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I found that very interesting, how that kind of sparked some inspiration, and that always plays a part when people are creating music. And that's something that's very interesting, that you took the time to think about the patients that you were able to interact with. And how has this translate with your band members too? Like, do they know some of the stories behind the patients and stuff that you drew some of this inspiration from?
Oh, yeah. I give them an earful. We would, every rehearsal, not every rehearsal, but back then, last year, when we would start a rehearsal, they're not real big. I'm not a religious person either. Consider myself a spiritual person. And so we would start out being, I would say at the rehearsal, look, think about why you're doing this music. Think about those people. Picture one person and how all of your training, all the years you studied, everything you put into your music. Think about maybe just one person that this is going to change their life. And then we'd start rehearsing. But then because I wanted their head to be in a place of coming from a place of giving and love and not ego.
Why is that so important for you, that everyone that's a part of this project, that they do it for that right purpose and for something that's bigger than themselves?
Well, I mean, first of all, I believe it just has a bigger impact. And I feel, this is my belief, that with that kind of attitude, when you have a heart to give and help, doors will open, and it will reach the people that it needs to. And the guys that I play with are very young. I'm like mom, but they're very educated and talented. They all have their degree in music. The guitar player has his master's degree in jazz guitar, and they're all under 30. So I'm mommy,
Wow.
but
Youngins.
They're very young and very, they're very coachable. They don't have a big chip on their shoulder, egotistical and all that. I just cannot tolerate ego. And in this project, I couldn't have it, not with where I wanted to go with it and what to do with it. So they got it. And, sometimes things that I said, they didn't really agree with or get, but they were very respectful. And that's why we could all work together. And, so it was fun. So it made it very pleasant.
And when people hear this, they're going to hear that, not just passion, but they're going to hear the sincerity of each part, each person. And when you are putting your music out there, and you'll probably hear this question like 1,000 times, what do you want people to take from it? But I'm going to switch it up and say, what's that core message that you hope people will learn from you?
To never give up. Never give up. And that's it. If you never give up, you're going to be okay.
You obviously have not given up, because you wouldn't have this new project to talk about and you wouldn't be here right now.
Right.
What, just generically speaking, what are some of the things that you've done to keep yourself from losing your vision on what it is you want to do in life and not allowing yourself to just fall apart and quit?
Well, I have to say I'm a person of faith, number one. And, well, I pray a lot. I meditate a lot on the Bible, the words that apply to whatever fear I'm feeling. And I have a scripture just about for every, everything. I believe there's a scripture that says, All things work together for good to those who love God. And that's a big one for me when I'm having problems or something comes up. So that's number one. God is first in my life. The other thing is to give and love people and get your head out of your own problems occasionally and give, you know, and help somebody else. And then all of a sudden, you're going to see your stuff's going to work out.
And that makes sense. We can always find ourselves in a problem, but the bigger question is, can we see ourselves get through it? Because it's easier to give up and quit and say, no, this is for me, it wasn't meant to be. Or you can say, you probably heard this before, people who say, but God, something happens, but God, he can change it all. And like you said, it can all work out for, our good. And I actually have a scripture too that I like, because this show Refocus that's what it's all about. Keep God first, stay focused, and peace is what we say on our show. But there's a scripture, Jeremiah 29:11. And that's my personal favorite, because it says, God knows the plans he has for you, not to harm you, but to give you a hope and a future. And when you have that mindset, because now we're understanding who the source is, because I can say that, because I be respectful to people's religion, but when you know who the source is, how do you allow yourself to stay anchored in that, even though storms may come in life?
That's the way I do it. I use the word, and I know there are people out there. See, something I did with my songs is I never mentioned God or Jesus in any of the songs. I wanted the songs to reach everybody. So the songs are all biblical, but biblical principles. I could give you a scripture for every song that I wrote, but I wanted to reach unbelievers too and give them some a reason to keep going. And then maybe God can work in their hearts as well. But I didn't want to just reach the gospel scene. I wanted to go for a wider audience, and we'll see if that wisdom plays out okay, if that was the right way to go. Time will tell.
Well, once again, talking to Louise Cappi, and I want to say thanks again for taking time out of your busy schedule talking to us today. They always say time flies by when you're having fun. I can't believe it's already been almost 30 minutes. But
oh, my God.
In the time we have left, those who are looking for hope, they may want to check out this music that you're about to release on your CD, because that, I believe, whenever someone has an inspiring story, I used to say, our pain is someone else's medicine. So sometimes we go through stuff so that other people can get the answers that, we had to go through the hard way. So with the opportunity you have with your platform to reach someone, what would you like to say to our listeners? And I'll let you have the floor.
First of all, I want to say thank you. And I can, for me, I feel like I'm a bit of an intuitive. I really feel a connection with you. And I know that's a spiritual thing, because I don't feel it with every interview. But anyway, what I want to say to the listeners is, I hope you'll listen to this music, and I hope that it will reach your heart. I hope it will help you keep your head above water and show you that you can keep going and you can reach your dreams, and keep that in your heart. And it does work. And prayer does work. they could go to my website, which is louisecappimusic.com, and they can hear the song Hope on my website. They can also download it on all of the major streaming.
Like she just said moments ago, visit her website. That website again is louisecappimusic.com. That's louisecappimusic.com. Go check out her music and make sure you go support the new project, Hope, the CD. And is that out or is it coming out pretty soon?
It comes out on September 10th.
Once again, that's September 10th. True honor talking to Miss Louise Cappi today. And like we say on every single show, keep God first, stay focused, and peace. Hey, it's Shamai Reed with I Am Refocused Radio. Make sure you go to IamRefocusedRadio.com to listen to today's episode. Once again, like we always say, keep God first, stay focused, and peace.